In an effort to put a price on their pledges tonight, we've employed the help of some expert fact-checkers in the ITV newsroom, and from there we can speak to Tom Phillips from the independent fact-checking organisation Full Fact. Good evening to you, Tom.
Good evening.
So let's start this evening with some of those tax claims. What do you make of all that discussion around tax thresholds? Who's being really honest about how much those tax changes would cost and who can really afford them?
So yeah, there were some fairly tense debates between them about the tax implications of what they're doing. Jeremy Hunt was talking about doing the biggest ever cut in corporation tax, which would be down to 12.5%. Now, it's true that would be, currently it's at 19%. It's already planned to fall to 17%. If it went down to 12.5%, as he proposes, then that would be the biggest single year cut. But there have been bigger sort of cumulative cuts in the past. There was a very intense argument between them about Boris Johnson's pledge to change the threshold at which tax is paid, which has been described as sort of going to the highest earners. That would be changing that. That would actually go to the top 8% of earners, and therefore does seem like some of Jeremy Hunt's accusations there were at least in the right sort of territory about who that particular pledge from Mr. Johnson would benefit. However, of course, Mr. Johnson then said that it was just part of a broader package of tax proposals that he had to roll out.
And of course, the other big argument tonight, unexpected, was, expected I should say, was around Brexit. What did you make of what the candidates had to say about Brexit?
So there was obviously a lot of back and forth between them. There was obviously some agreement between them as well about how to deal with, for example, the Northern Irish backstop, some of which relied on technical solutions, which, as was pointed out to them, the EU have said that they don't believe that those will work, which is why they have the backstop in place. Anyway, there was a disagreement about what Boris Johnson had previously said about something called Article 24 of GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. Now, in the previous one of the previous debates, he'd said there will be no tariffs, there will be no quotas, because what we want to do is get a standstill under GATT 24 or whatever it happens to be. And Jeremy Hunt came back and said that that wouldn't work because Geoffrey Cox had said it wouldn't work. Just recently, the actual Director General of the World Trade Organization, Roberto Azevedo, he said that if there is no agreement, then under Article 24, that would not apply and the standard WTO terms would. Boris Johnson then replied and said that obviously there would have to be an agreement of some kind. And so that kind of sort of fizzled a little bit during that. There was also some discussion about whether or not the supply chains could be properly protected. Boris Johnson said that to prepare for no deal, you would have to ensure that the supply chains are properly protected. There are a lot of questions around this. Both candidates were suggesting that the government would be prepared for no deal. Boris Johnson suggested that more. The problem is we don't know an awful lot about how prepared the government actually was for no deal, because very little information was released about that. And so we're in a situation, the question of protecting just-in-time supply chains, for example, as far as we're aware, there are currently no proposals that could protect those kind of supply chains, because you're still going to need to have customs checks and border checks and things like that. And so this is an area we've worked on this with our friends from the Institute for Government and their Brexit team, who are experts in this, and they say that those plans are not really credible at the current moment. And there was also some discussion of whether or not the withdrawal agreement effectively keeps us in the single market and the customs union. And of course, the difference there is that
we're just going to round off this. We're just going to round off this discussion, Tom.
The withdrawal agreement.
I know, Tom, that you're impartial in your role, Tom. But just a last quick question on this topic, if we can. Who do you think gave the most factually accurate arguments tonight?
I think that's hard to say, partly because, and yes, we are impartial and we are balanced in all things. But it's hard to say because an awful lot of it is predictive stuff. They're talking about what they would do in the future. And the trouble is you can't fact check the future. And so a lot of what they're doing is making claims about what they plan to do. And the question of whether or not those would work is one that's really a difficult question to answer. So unfortunately, no, I'm not going to help you answer that question.